No one has arrived yet.
Well, they should be here soon.
I made many delicious appetizers.
I think we should wait. It's a big universe. Oh, hi there. Welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. If you've never listened to the show before, welcome. In addition to providing entertaining and informative photography-related information, I also go on adventures with the crew of the Starship Fibonacci. Right now, we're waiting for other members of our intergalactic adventurers group to arrive for our first ever meetup. Fib told me that I should be more social in real life, and that having a community is important to not only improving and learning from others, but it also aids with mental health. Speaking of communities, our guest for this episode, Dimitry Mak, is here to talk about the importance of being part of a great photography community. He has been pivotal in making the Photographers of Threads community one of the largest and most active groups on that platform. We discuss a wide range of places you can find communities of your own to be a part of, and remembering that it's also helping out other members of your community, not just receiving help. On that note, I have a little homework for all of you before the main part of the episode, and that is to share this podcast with at least 3 of your friends. Send it to 3 people who you think would benefit from listening to not only this episode, but the show in general. And stay tuned for my talk with Dimitry Mak right after the break. Ooh, our first guests are arriving. And it's a bunch of bots. Hey there, listeners. Are you signed up for the Nerdy Photographer newsletter yet? If not, you should sign up right away. Why? Because there are big deals headed your way if you're a subscriber to the newsletter. If not, you don't get the deals. These are deals that are only going to be available to people who have signed up for the newsletter. So go and do that. Go to nerdyphotographer.com/newsletter and sign up. Or, click on the link that's in the episode notes, because there's a link in there. I make it easy for you guys. Sign up today and you won't miss out on those deals on discounts for our contract templates, our unposed photography prompts. These deals, you don't want to miss them. So sign up today. Go do it. Photographers, it's time to revolutionize your workflow with Aftershoot. Imagine culling through thousands of images in a matter of minutes, effortlessly flagging blurry shots and closed-eye pictures. Now you can stop imagining and meet your new photography sidekick, Aftershoot, the game-changing AI photo culling and editing software. Say goodbye to hours spent sifting through images, as Aftershoot's AI can cull thousands of photos in just a few minutes, grouping together similar shots and flagging those blurry or closed-eye pics. I have been using Aftershoot for a little over a year, and I have to say, it has transformed the workflow on the portrait side of my business, culling and organizing my photos from family portrait sessions to corporate headshots in a matter of minutes. For engagements, events, and weddings, it does a great job as a first pass cull for me, since I like to go through and make sure I didn't miss anything, but those family and group photos are all solidly organized together, and that saves me so much time. You can also make your artistic vision a reality. Aftershoot's automated AI editing is customizable to your unique style. Edit thousands of images in just a few clicks, achieving consistency and brilliance effortlessly. Sign up now at nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/aftershoot and experience the Aftershoot advantage with your first month free. Transform your workflow and transform your business. Go to nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/aftershoot or click the link in the episode notes and free up time for what you love by letting AI handle the heavy lifting, so you can focus on capturing moments and not sorting through them. Hello, and welcome to the Nerdy Photographer Podcast. I'm your host, Casey Fatchett. I'm here today with Dimitry Mak. Welcome, Dimitry.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And before we get into everything, we're going to start off with the dice breaker, and then it's a 4. Okay, what's the worst photography advice you've ever received?
Oh man. I actually just saw one on Threads. It's not the worst, but it was pretty terrible, and I feel it might be a good icebreaker. Somebody posted that you shouldn't go to any photography meetups or networking events or anything like that, it's a waste of time.
That is the opposite of what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly. I knew it was a good icebreaker.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I was having this discussion. I did a live on Instagram yesterday, and I was talking about this whole thing, and there were a lot of people were just discussing things like they found it hard to get people to actually show up, like the people who were trying to organize meetups and do things like oh, like nobody wants to show up unless you've got a model, and I'm like, well, that's not necessarily the people that you want to be connecting with if they're only interested in the model part of it, or like finding. I think for me, and I've been at this for 25 years, one of the most difficult parts of meeting up with people is scheduling, because we've all like I have a ton of photographer friends, and we're all we're working photographers.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
how do we make this work with our schedules? But if you're trying to meet new people, the problem for me is, and some people probably won't believe this, even though I've mentioned it before on the show, I'm kind of an introvert, and it's hard for me to meet new people. Once I meet someone and we talk and I feel like I'm getting to know them a little bit, I open up, and like everything's good. But if I go to a place where I have never met someone before, I'm always like super self-conscious about how I'm gonna meet up with somebody and talk to them, and are they gonna think I'm a weirdo, just because I'm an awkward person sometimes.
Yeah, it takes time. Like I would consider myself an outgoing person. I can put myself into any situation and just be comfortable with meeting people and finding things to talk about. But that took time. I think people will say this not just about what, like, let's say if you're a social person, you'll be like, "Oh, you're really good at," and it's like, I think just like anything else, you have to work at it, just like photography or guitar playing or whatever it is, you have to work at it. As I remember when I first started, going out in New York City, as like I was like heavily involved in the club scene, and I just didn't know how to talk to people. I was nervous. I was like insecure, and it took time. Um, and then eventually I ended up being a door person for like a really hot party in New York where you have to have people skills. And I
Yeah.
learned a lot there, because you have to be able to, not like a security person where you check IDs. Like I was
Yeah.
like 1E or something, or but like a door person where like people get like it's like a velvet rope, and
Yep.
you have to be like, you can come in, you can't come in, that kind of stuff. It's very common in New York City.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot, just every weekend I learn how to talk to people, how to maybe reject someone from coming in without being rude. All that stuff. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes repetition, and I still, I just went to a Fuji event a couple weeks back, and it takes me a second to kind of like click into socializing mode. But once I'm in like so easy, and I can go talk to anyone.
Yeah, I feel like I can. To clarify, me, there's this initial nervousness, and I've about being in the situation. I get I can get past it, and like especially in my business wise, like dealing with groups of people or whatever. It is one of the reasons though that I have always kind of gravitated towards candid photography, because it helps me be like, oh, I don't have to be like up in people's faces telling them what to do or whatever. I can handle that situation if I need to and pose people, but that's it's a totally different gear. Like you said, you have to practice and you have to be able to get used to
I
it.
do a lot of like street portrait, because just I'm the opposite. I don't like taking pictures. I don't like taking pictures of people on the street without their consent.
Oh, that's totally different. That's totally different.
Yeah. So I go up to people and I'll talk to them and I'll hear their stories and see what they're about and ask them questions. So there's an exchange and there's a little bit of, because like every person that I've photographed on the street, I remember what I talked to them about. You know what I mean? Like I can still remember now. So I like going and talking and being like hearing what people are talking about, hearing about their life. And so that's my whole thing. I'm just I like being in there.
Awesome, man. Like, it takes, this is why I always tell people, like, there are different places for different types of photography. There in personalities. Everybody's got a different, thing
Hmm.
that they are more natural at. It's good to have both sides of it, and to, if there's something that you're not especially good at, to, to work on it and practice, and have it at least in your toolbox to be able to go to if you need to. I think I'm getting a little
Hmm.
off the topic of, not going to meetups. I think a lot of the problem with, that some people have with going to meetups or things like that is that some groups can be very cliquey, and they don't feel like they're welcomed in if they show up and they don't know somebody.
Yeah.
I've had that experience, uh, where I've gone and I've shown up to like a seminar or a workshop or something, and like there's obviously like two groups of people there who, like, they all know each other really well, and they maybe know the person who's running the workshop, and I feel like there's maybe me and one other person who have absolutely no idea who anybody else is. So, and
Right.
we, try to talk to people or whatever, and they're like, we don't know you,
Yeah.
and that can be hard for people, and that's again
Hmm.
like a,
Yeah.
uh,
Things can be clicky anywhere.
yeah,
Any not just photography, but like so in music, I know a lot of people in certain circles and certain people run with certain people, and it's just I think that's just like humans being we're like social creatures. And I think that's just the way we're built to be a little bit with our little tribes.
yeah. I think that what to counter that for people who feel like, I don't want to go out to this meetup or this whatever, because people are going to be in their little clicky groups and they're not going to make me feel welcome, whatever. Like, go there, and hopefully that won't be the case. But also, if it is, what do you need to get out of this? What do you need to get out of this meetup? What are you trying to accomplish? Are
Right. What
you
is your intent to even go there? Are
right?
you, like you said, like, are there people showing up just to photograph a model? Are you there to actually meet and like be part of a community? And, the same way like, motorcycle, not gangs, but like
Yeah,
motorcycle clubs, they'll get together every Sunday or every month and they'll ride for 70 miles or whatever.
yeah,
Like their intent probably is to be part of a group and to ride as a group and it's fun for them.
yeah.
They're not there to, photograph a model or whatever, but like,
Right.
they have an intent. They're like, we are going to do this. So I think if you know what your intent is going to these meetups, like what are you trying to get out of it, then it'll be easier for you to like process it and understand like why you're there and what you should be doing.
Right.
Should you be like gravitating towards maybe if you want to meet the person who organized it because maybe you yourself one day want to organize a meetup, so you have questions for them. How do you organize this?
Right.
Or is your intent to meet other photographers and ask them about their gear? How did you get that shot? How do I teach me more about the triangle, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
How
you
can
got
I
to have
get?
an intent with everything in life, and I think if you know why you're going to these things, then it's easier for you to like kind of make yourself feel at home or feel like, okay, I'm here for this reason. But if you have no reason, yeah, they might be a waste of time because you don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you want, and that's fine because it takes time to learn what you want out of certain things, out of life, out of relationships, out of your career. So some people it takes time, but yeah, that is
And it can
for
change.
listening. That's terrible advice.
Yeah.
Do go to meetups, find your intent, figure out what you want to do, and they're great for networking, for being part of a community, and honestly, a lot of um, things in my life, in my career, have progressed because of people I knew. Like your network is everything.
Yeah. And the
So if you go
thing,
to a meetup and meet people and learn from them, if you surround yourself with photographers that don't know what they're doing, or maybe at the beginning of their career, and that's fine if that's where you are. That's the kind of um, range you're going to be in.
Right.
But if you're starting out and you maybe try to surround yourself with someone that's a little bit more advanced than you're going to learn and level up quicker. And then if you find a mentor who's been at it for 30 years,
Right.
you level up faster. So, yeah, I think it's important to go to things and be present in real life, because we're also used to being online and meeting people online. And it's great because I've met a lot of people online, but nothing beats being in person. So, if you ever see somebody giving you advice about not going to networking events or whatever, don't listen to them.
And
Go and do it, meet people, smile, shake hands, hug it out, make some friends. Your photography career or whatever career will be better off in the long run.
So yeah, talk to people. The thing is, like, the more often you show up, the more people get to know you. The more, like, people, like, even people who didn't recognize you at first, and they don't know.
You start seeing the same people, and then you might be part of a little clique.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is, like, as someone who, like I was going to say before, like, I've been on the other side of it too, where I'm kind of in the group of people who all know each other because we've all been to the same events for years. So we're all like, hey, how's it going? And it's just
not so much as a clique, like you can't sit with us, but it's more of like, hey, I've seen you before. You're cool. Like, I already know that I feel comfortable around you.
Right.
So it's not like, people often think like, and there are cliques where it's like, you can't sit with us. But I always see it as like, cliques are just people that are drawn to each other for whatever reason. Maybe you like the way somebody dresses, or you have the same camera or the same lens setup. Like, it's easier for you to go and talk to someone who's like doing the same things than it is, someone that's not.
Yeah, because you have a touchstone from which to go. Like, I'm going to discuss, we're the same camera brand, so I'm going to, like, talk about that. Or, you're also a portrait photographer, or you're also a wedding photographer, or you do this. So that's something we can, like, a point of connection that we can go off of, as opposed to like, oh, we have nothing in common. I don't know what to, hey man, what are you doing here? Well, I'm just here to learn something. Okay, great. Like, go in there and, like, find your touchstone with other people. And, that's a good place to start from. The thing that I think that some people worry about going up to a more experienced photographer when they're just starting out is like, oh, I'm going to get rejected. They don't want to talk to me. I don't mind talking to anybody, as long as it's sort of like, you're not just like the first thing you say to me is not like, how do I make this photo? Like, that's the one thing that I'm just like, I always sit there and it kind of puts me in a position of, like, I start to explain, like, if I give you the settings, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to create this picture. Like, and that becomes the teachable moment of, like, there's so much more to learn. And, but I've seen other people, just have this moment of, they shut off because it's like, art is the only thing you're here to, like, talk to me about, is, like, replicating all of my photos, or what is it that, like that, like we said before, intent. It's also something, as I think a mutual connection of ours, Johnny Edward and I discussed on this before. Intention is, like, so important, because it's like, it determines, what you're doing. Like, the whole blurry photo trend that was going on for a while, and it was just like, why are you doing that? Are you doing it just to be part of a trend, or, like, do you know where that kind of look came from? And it's like, I shoot a lot of film as, like, on personal projects, and it's like, oh, it's because you can't focus real fast on stuff, because it's all manual focus. And that's why, and you don't know if you have, like, this razor sharp focus, because you don't have, like, your AI in your camera that's, like, telling you whether or not it's, sharply focused. So you were depending on your own eye. And if you're like me and you maybe have vision problems, it's not always, like, razor sharp focus, especially if you're shooting at, like, 1.8 on an old film camera.
Right.
But that's just saying that's one of the things I find, like, sometimes people who are a little bit more advanced kind of step back and feel a little disconnected from somebody who's less experienced, is when they just feel like they're just being approached to, like, I just want to copy your style, and I just want to learn that photo, and then that's all I want from you. And I don't want to, like, have a connection with you.
Yeah, it's tough. I think, one of the things that I learned when I was kind of doing clubbing and being a doorman was to read people. And sometimes when someone that's maybe a beginner might be asking me a question, I try to have patience and understand that some people are also just not very good at um or haven't learned yet to just be how to like ask for stuff or ask for advice or ask for insight on something. And that comes with just some people are just not very good at talking to
Yeah.
people, and so I try to have a little bit of patience and see what else they have to say. And if they do want to copy something I've done, I'm happy to share what I'm doing. But I will always try to make time for somebody unless they are um something I see on threads a lot is people talking about gatekeeping, and um sometimes people confuse gatekeeping with you owe somebody an explanation.
Right.
And I'm always happy to share information when people ask me about stuff. I'm always happy to share my platform. I share people's photos, but I don't owe anything to anybody.
Right.
I do it because I want to, and that's what I like doing. That's what makes me happy. But it's not because it's out of fear of, oh, if I don't do it, I'm going to be called a gatekeeper. Like I am not that, and it's kind of silly that people think that if someone is not willing to share something, they are a gatekeeper. It's like, well, no, some people don't want to be put on the spotlight. If somebody asks, sometimes when I was starting out, people be like, "How do you do this?" And I'm like, I felt nervous explaining it because I wasn't sure my skill set yet.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I feel nervous, and it's not because I was trying to gatekeep. I was like, I don't know how to talk about this stuff yet.
Yeah, I've had that experience where somebody like has asked about, well, how do you like what goes into this? And I'm like, man, that is, and I'll say something like that's way longer than I can answer in a social media post that you're
Yeah,
gonna, and I'm proud of the points probably not get across. I said maybe I'll make a video about it or something, and or a blog post or something that can go in depth, and they'll be like, oh man, you just don't want to tell me how to do it. I'm like, no, I'm like I think I get what you're asking, but I can't explain what you're asking for in, a tweet or a
right.
comment on Instagram or, like it's a really, robust topic to get into. And I'm like, this is not for social media. This is just like, not, it's just not something I can handle in social and have been accused of like, oh, you're just
Hmm.
keeping it to yourself. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to explain to you that, A, I don't have the time right now to like go into something that I could probably talk to you for like 2 hours about.
Right.
As opposed to like putting it into 100 characters or whatever that you will be
Right.
able to understand this. So why do you believe, because you mentioned threads, you're extremely active in the photographers of threads community. I personally think that, in watching that group, you have really spearheaded a lot of the involvement and getting more people involved. It's a huge part of threads. Why do you believe that building community among photographers is so important, both to individuals and for the industry itself?
Um, well, something like I said earlier, I think people who you surround yourself with really kind of shape where your career can go. And I think surrounding myself with talented photographers, being inspired by them every single day I get on threads. I'm on threads daily, every single day. I haven't skipped a day since I signed up to my account September 23rd. Um, and so I think being around other talented photographers, people who are further along, that know more stuff, not just about photography, the art, but photography, the business. So I'm constantly just learning from everybody. Um, and I like, I've always liked being part of a community. So what I do, my main thing is I'm a music producer and DJ, and I travel and I perform in front of, some of the top clubs in the country. And so I'll get on stage and there'll be like hundreds or sometimes thousand something people there. with the whole production, and I like being in the middle of it all, and I like, I'll talk to people after my gig, before my gig. So I like being a part of something. Um so yeah, I like being a part of something that exists and something that can grow and something that, eventually I want to host Photographers of Threads meetups all over the country. If my profile ever gets big enough to draw that amount of people. Um, so yeah, I like being a part of something special, and it definitely is special. I mean, Meta noticed it.
Yeah.
They invited me to their offices to talk about it, to talk about the community. So
And Masseri
um,
joined your Discord.
yeah, exactly. So I like building something that has momentum, that has movement, and I've done it with my music career. So it's fun for me to be around other photographers and learn from them. It's really I love learning. I it's something that I really really enjoy. I love just digging into stuff and figuring out why something clicks. Um
Well, I mean, I want to say like this is coming from. I'm older than you, but I've been around like social media for a long time, and I will say like the Photographers of Threads like group is a community. Like you really see it as like a community of people.
yeah.
I was on Twitter for a long time before that went to hell. Like, but there was never this sort of like interactions and on the regular between photographers. And I know tons of people will be like, "Why am I not getting likes? And why am I not getting like, you know?" Continue to be involved and then build
Mhm.
real connections with people. It's not just about the number of likes that you're getting or the
Mhm.
number of
I've had messages where people have asked me, I'm using the hashtag, but I'm not getting any likes. And I was like, well, that's not why I created it. I didn't, so before hashtags were even, I don't know, have you been on Threads
Yeah,
since like,
since the
okay,
beginning.
so like you remember there was no hashtags
Yeah,
before. Yeah. So like I used to host like showcases where I would literally spend like hours posting a showcase, and then people would like jump in, and it would be kind of like a gallery opening where people would share their photos and people would be in the comments, and I'd be kind of running the whole show, kind of like I said with my DJ stuff, where
yeah.
I'm like kind of on this, in the middle of the crowd, and I'd be reposting people's photos,
You're a
and this was
curator.
like, yeah, and yeah, that's why the phrase even was existed, because I would start every single showcase with like, good afternoon, photographers of Threads, good evening,
Yeah,
whatever. We're doing a showcase. This was before everybody was doing like show me your favorite,
yeah,
like the little engagement bait things.
yeah.
And I think people also saw that it was a genuine thing, because I did all the time, and I still do to this day, share everybody's photos, use my platform to uplift other people. And I think that's what resonated with people. And that's why I think the community had such a strong um, start, and such a strong, like the base of it comes from a really good place. And I think that's why it was able to grow to where it was, because it started as a very like genuine and authentic thing. And I think um, people are drawn to that, and people want to be part of something real. Um, and people still do a lot of engagement bait, and it's funny because sometimes I'll see people use the hashtag to get engagement bait, and I'm like, that's not why this whole thing started. But uh,
And you can
yeah,
tell, like the people who like just throw out these things like, "Oh, I want to connect with a bunch. I want to connect with other photographers." Like, put
yeah,
your like, and comment in the below, like, and
yeah,
it's like they don't respond to anybody. They don't.
uh-huh,
There's no interaction whatsoever. It's like you
yeah,
look and like that's the you do a quick dive into anybody. Like when I see those posts, I'm like, let me see what you're doing. Yeah, nope.
yeah.
And I think that it's great because you do interact with a lot of people, and you promote other people's stuff, like the sharing of other people's work, and being like,
Mm-hmm.
"Hey, this is great," and you know, you can be
Yeah, when
inspired
I
by other
first started
people.
it, people would dude, it's been such a crazy journey on there because people would come at me and be like, "Why didn't you share my thing in particular?" Like, I got overlooked. You're full of shit. I'm like, dude, I just reposted like 30 other people from this showcase. I maybe your photo didn't resonate with me,
Yeah.
or maybe
I can have my own
I'm
opinion.
overwhelmed. But like, people would like come at me and say that you didn't repost my photo, and I was like, I can only do so much. I feel like I'm probably one of the most active people on Threads in
You
the whole
are.
fucking app.
Yeah.
So
It's the feeling of entitlement. Like, oh, you said you were reposting people, so why didn't you repost mine?
right.
And it's just like, that's not a way. Like, this is not what this is about.
Yeah, I'm reposting people that resonate with me. It doesn't mean that I'm this. I'm not like a repost machine. I'm someone that enjoys being. If I see people that have been in previous things, and if people that have been in my comments, I'm like, oh, that person's been around. They're not just trying to get something up. They're like genuinely part of the community,
Right.
and I start to engage with them, and that's, so it like became a little weird for a little while, and I was just like, dude, I'm not trying to be a repost machine. I'm happy to share people, and always like, if somebody has a question, or like I would do this thing where I would try to host the thing where if for like a Q&A, and I would say in the prompt, the main thread, I would say like, if I don't know something,
Yeah,
I'll be happy to share the question to the people that follow me. And I have a lot of photographers that are very established, very professional, way better than I am in so many ways. And I know that they can help others. And if I can bridge those people together, if I can help someone learn something and someone share their knowledge, that is like the fucking shit, dude.
Yeah. That's the whole point of
like
having
awesome.
a community.
It's the whole point of the community.
Yeah.
So to me, it wasn't just about the reposts, and it wasn't just about, I talk about social media a lot on Threads because I want to help fellow photographers grow. And sometimes people, when you talk about social media in any kind of setting, people be like, you're just talking about likes. And I'm like, no, forget about that. It's not about likes. It's about connecting with people and growing as an artist, because we all exist on social media. We're here to connect with others. Right. At least I am. And I'm not chasing some magical number. I don't care if my photo gets 50 likes or 5,000, which they have. I'm not there for that. But I do acknowledge that it exists. It's important for me to acknowledge the place that I'm participating in. Right. I know this website is based, it has views, it has likes, it has reposts. Am I just supposed to like put my head in the sand and pretend those things don't exist? No. Like, so it's important to me to talk about it, because I want to help people understand how to be on there, how to connect, how to grow, and how to show up as yourself. Yeah. Show up authentically as yourself on social media. That's something that I've talked about forever. Yeah. And I hope that I think we're coming into an age of social media where authenticity is literally like the thing that people are starved for the most, because we've all seen, like, we've lived through the influencer era, where it was like every grid was so curated and the shots were so perfect, and it was like people are living these fake perfect lives. Mm-hmm. And I think people are just over that.
They want to see what
hung over from it, essentially.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that you talk about a lot on Threads is being grateful, and I think that like it's that whole thing of like of counting, like, and I had to get over it myself. At times, there have been times where I've just been like, man, why didn't this get as many views as I thought I was going to get? And it's just like, no, like I have to like think about like, am I reaching people? And that's I do the same thing when I say like, hey, if you have a question, if I don't know the answer, I know a lot of people too. Like I'm going to like tag somebody in who I think can help you, because I want to help people. I don't want to, I'm not just sitting there like hoping that you want to like see me as the only source for things. Hell, that's why I do this show. Is because there are people who know stuff that I'm, not the best at.
I'm always learning. I'm always, like Johnny Edward is great. I met him. I went to Denver and then I connected with him there. I travel a lot for my DJ stuff, and so I'm able to meet people not just in New York, and I've met people who've come to New York, but I'm able to meet people when I travel too. So that's been really cool because I've been able to. I feel like the average person doesn't travel as much as me, and so
It's an
I've been able
opportunity.
to. Yeah, It's been really cool to kind of make the world a little bit smaller for myself, and I'm able to meet people that are living everywhere. So that's been really cool. But yeah, it's yeah. To to finish off that thought, the community is just about learning and sharing and being part of something that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah, I think that, and that brings me to my next point, which is taking this like sense of community. If you want to take and kind of going back to where we started with like meetups and things like that, what advice would you have for people who are looking like they've they would like to meet someone whom, if they happen to be in the same geographical area, hopefully at the same time, like, oh, like this is somebody that I've, been interacting with, on social media, who I would hopefully maybe like to meet up with in person. What are your suggestions for like trying to like broach that subject with people?
Sure, sure. Um, I could actually start with an example from my music career. So when I was first starting out, the way you kind of move up and kind of learn your ropes and be part of it is if you're a DJ, you would open for another DJ. And in the band world too, if you're in a
Yeah.
band or whatever genre you're in, you start as an opener. Taylor Swift was an opener now.
Yeah.
She's the biggest, so you would open for other DJs. And that was kind of my way into the world. I would literally just say, hey, I was terrible. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I wanted to do it and I knew I wanted to be a part of it. So I would just DM people or show up to their gigs and say, hey, can I open for you? Can I help promote the night? I'd wanted to be involved. And I think when you want to be involved, you'll do things that are just, uh, you're not thinking like, I think a lot of people start with, how can I start a business first? And that's
Yes.
important. That's important. Business is important. We could talk about that later, but uh, I I would just I wanted to be so involved. I wanted it more than anything, and I would just DM people, cold DMs, like, hey, so I think if you want to be involved and you see photographers that are, let's say, successful or doing cool stuff on social media, I'd just be involved in their stuff. Be like, hey, man, I saw that you do street photography. I'd love to tag along. Maybe I
Yeah.
can help carry your light or
Something.
something, or like, can I take you out for a coffee and like pick your brain? And that's a lot more to me. That's a lot more like real stuff than just asking, how did you create that picture?
Yeah.
If somebody's like, hey, I'd love to pick your brain about stuff, and I'm just starting out. If
Okay.
people come at me not being entitled to information, I'm always happy to answer. Um, so if somebody's like, if you're listening, to answer your question, if you want to get involved or you want to be part of what somebody else is doing, or you look up to them, and I would say just start really like showing up in the comments.
Yeah.
Like when I start on threads, it's so funny because sometimes I'll like people I do get a lot of hate on threads. Not a lot, but people will say something like, I'll post something and they'll be like, well, it's easy for you to say, you have 15,000 followers. And I'm like, dude, I started here just like everybody else. I did not have 15. I literally, like, first few weeks of threads, I was talking to myself, really.
Yeah.
And then
Just shouting into the void.
shouting into the void. I did it. So if I can do it, you can do it too. But then I started to, one of the first people I followed was Scott Bourne. Who, I don't know if you follow him on threads. Yeah. And so I started following him and I started reading all his advice things that he would post, and I would engage with him. And ask them questions, and same thing. I just wanted to be involved, and I was curious. I'm just a curious person by nature, so I'm always asking stuff, and I don't feel, it's not because I'm like entitled to information. If somebody doesn't want to answer me, that's fine. But I'm always going to ask in a way that is respectable and not like you owe me an answer. If somebody doesn't want to answer me, that's okay. But I'll always try to find a nice way to approach that person and ask them about things. So yeah, just really be involved, and then you could be part of a little clique.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I don't know.
Well, I think that the thing
I
is
feel like we're gonna be bringing that up throughout the whole show.
the click is it just it keeps coming back. It's like Mean Girls.
This is part of our whole
Click.
clicks. Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, man, it's gonna have some. I gotta work that into the title somehow. The thing that I would add to that is that and I've noticed it as somebody who's been around for a long time, and people, my message requests on Instagram are filled with people who are like, I need somebody to show me how to do this. Can you give me like, what camera should I buy? And, what lenses should I get? And it's just like, man, this is just something that's like, again, I'll point
it's so personal too. I don't know, because sometimes people be like, what should I get? I'm a beginner. I'm like, well, what are you trying to get into? Like, what's your intent?
Yes. What do you want to photograph? What kind of pictures do you want to take? Like this, there's a whole, and I'll try to do that. Like, and I just got I got worn out on it because there were just so many of them. But it was also the people who, like you said, people who show up in the comments. And this is how I meet people generally. This is how I approached you about being on the show, was because I liked what you were doing. I was interacting, and then I was like, hey man, you want to be on the show? Like that I want to show you that I am invested in what you have to say. And I'm not just looking for, to get something out of it.
I mean, people say, oh, you get a lot of engagement, and that's great. But I still approach like photographers that are bigger than me and that leave me on red. But I'm still just as curious as someone that has 5 followers. That's the kind of curiosity I bring every day, because I'm not like gonna go on there and be like, I know everything, and I'm not gonna be a part of it all. I'm curious every day. I'm asking questions. I'm seeing what people are up to. All that stuff is interesting to me. So, I think that's the best way to be part of something. If you're starting out, get curious, be involved.
Yeah. And then
and offer more than you take when you're first starting out, and bring that with you later in career too. But especially when you're first starting out, offer more than you take. If you're, like I said, when I was starting out as a DJ, I'd be like, I'll open for you. I'll get there at 10 p.m. and I'll set up and I'll be there for hours before you get there. So when you go on, the room will be good and ready, and I'll be there, and for free even. Dude, because it's like people think when you buy it, like it's the same. There's so many parallels between the DJ world and the photography world. It's so funny because it's like when someone buys a piece of DJ gear, they automatically are like, I'm a DJ now, I'm entitled to get paid. I'm like, no, you're not.
What can you do with it?
You bought a camera, you're not entitled to get paid. Like, it takes time to learn your craft. So that's when you get paid, not because you bought the thing.
Right.
That is gonna get you paid.
Eventually. Hopefully.
Yeah, eventually it'll get you paid, but just because you bought it, you're not entitled to payment.
Right.
You have to go to school, not like a literal school, though that's cool too. But you have to put in your time.
You have to learn.
You have to learn. That's plain and simple, really.
I'm 25 years in. I'm still learning stuff. Like, it's just, and you have to, like you said, curiosity. I'm always like, oh man, how would I do that? Or like thinking about that, or seeing somebody else's photo. I'm like, man, I wonder how they did that. But that gets my brain going, and I don't necessarily like turn on as I'm like, how'd you do that? What were your settings? Whatever. My brain starts clicking on like, man, I wonder how they shot that. And like, for me, it's more of a mental exercise, because I'm not trying to like just get somebody's settings from them. I'm thinking like, man, how would I do that? or those sorts of things that get my creative juices flowing. And
Mm-hmm.
something I mentioned before that you are very big on being grateful. I think that that's a really, to get beyond like this sort of social media trap of thinking about how many likes did I get? How many shares did I get? How many
Mm-hmm.
followers do I have? Like having like, when I think about like why I started this show and like why I do the nerdy photographer stuff in general outside of my like photography business, because let's be honest, that's what actually pays my bills. This does not pay my bills.
Sure.
This I'm doing to help other people. And when I get like an email from like one person who was just like, man, that really, like, this episode of the show or this conversation or this thing that you posted really had an impact on me, or it really helped me on this. And I'm like, man, that, like, I feel so good. Like, it feels,
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that. Like, that I was able to help that one person, not 1,000 people or 100,000 people. Like, I helped that one person, and that made their life better on that day or in their job, or like it helped them get a gig, or it helped them like make their business easier or whatever. And I'm
Or
just
even
like,
get through a tough time, man. Like sometimes people will post things and I'll just try to chime in the comments like, hey, keep your head up.
yeah,
Even something as simple as that really kind of moves people. I've gotten messages from people that with my DJ career, I've gotten messages, I've been at it for a while. I
yeah,
do it professionally. I'll get messages that from DJs from like 5 years ago and we're like, oh, I remember when you let me open for you and now I'm doing this and I really appreciated that opportunity. You know what I mean? And so yeah, like putting people on is like a and helping people out when you can, when you're able to, is a big thing. And just being there. And that's what community is too, you
yeah.
know?
And I've had like, weirdly, like because I tend to self-deprecate as a means of defense or whatever. And I'm like, who's listening to this or whatever? But I've had people show up, like much bigger photographers show up in my Instagram messages who'd be like, oh, like I loved that whatever thing. Because I do a lot of like jokey stuff on Instagram. And
Mm-hmm.
and I had like a couple of people ask me like, hey man, I was having like, I've been at this for a long time, and I was having a really dark period. Like, you just made me laugh about my situation, and because it really isn't that big of a deal, even though I was
Yeah.
like thinking, you know, this is terrible and whatever, but like, you made me like laugh about it, and like, please keep that up. I need that in my life. And I'm just like, I feel that's the sort of connections we need to be like, that's my intent. My intent is to like have, like, do that for people. Like, I want to make people laugh. I want them to learn things. I want like to make their life as a photographer easier or funnier, one of the two. And yeah, like, it's not about the exact number of likes or shares or comments or whatever
Yeah.
that is a result.
And to add to that, um, to anyone listening, I don't think there's anything wrong with celebrating the amount of likes you get or the amount of downloads or the amount of followers you get. Um, if if you're not chasing numbers for the sake of numbers, but if
Right.
you're like genuinely like, I mean, dude, I remember when I started on Threads, I'd have a few hundred followers and I'd just literally be like, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. And then when I had 1,000 followers, and then when I had 5,000, and then 10,000, it's still the same
Yeah.
person that, so there's nothing wrong with celebrating your message growing and getting out to people. As artists, we all want our message to be, I want 1 million people to see my photo.
Yeah.
I have no shame in saying that. I love when people see my stuff. It means a lot to me when people say, I really love that photo. That is so special to me. So there's nothing wrong with enjoying
No,
people
nothing
being
wrong
a
with it.
part of your journey. So celebrate those wins, but don't focus on the numbers.
Right.
Don't focus on like, I saw a post, somebody was like, um, something like along the lines of like, oh, can y'all help me get to 3,000 followers?
Right. I really
And
want to
it's
get to
like,
3,000. And yeah,
and it's
I've
like,
seen those.
then it's like you're just kind of collecting people like Pokemon. Like you just
Gotta
want
catch them all.
3,000 for the sake of it being a number that seems high to you.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen next is once you reach 3,000, you're going to want 5,000. Then you're going to be like, can y'all follow me? Because I just want to get to 5,000 now. And it's never going to be enough. But if you approach it from a place of not worrying about what comes next and just appreciating the people that are there already, those people will kind of be present for you and be there as your audience, as your community, as your future friends. Like, I've made so many friends that started out as people just in the comments, so don't chase numbers, appreciate them when you have them, and know that those are real people behind those numbers. And, or like some people will say, like, I just reached 10,000 and that's the whole thread.
Yeah.
And it's like,
okay,
10,000 what?
And what?
Like, you're just excited about the number. So, like, when I reach a certain number, I'm like, hey, I can't believe there's 10,000 of you here, because that is mind blowing to me. So I'm talking to the people that are there. I think when people post those kind of things, it seems like they're telling everybody else, look what I have here. Look at this amount that I reached. And they're not talking to the people that are the 10,000.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not saying, hey, people that they're here.
That really wanted.
Thank you. They're shouting to the world saying, here's the amount that I reached. Y'all should be impressed. And that's the kind of numbers that that's not what I subscribe to. That's not what I like. That's not what I like to see. So to me, that's when somebody says that just without acknowledging their audience or their followers or their community, or just acknowledging the number itself, that is the kind of stuff that I don't like. That is the stuff that kind of is like, I'm like, that feels icky, because it's like, when I see people like, oh, my post didn't get this many likes. And it's like, but it did get likes. There are people there.
So what are you saying about the people who did like it? Yeah.
They're not enough for you, right?
Right. So you didn't feed my ego enough to like.
Yeah. They're saying like, hey, you people that liked and supported me and follow me, you're not enough, because I want to reach way more and you guys don't even matter. And I'm like, what? So to me, I always focus on the people that are there, and I nurture those kind of relationships and that kind of thing, because I want to be part of it. I want to be involved with the people that are showing up for me.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, for the next year, I was at wherever I'm at, like 17,500 people that are following me. If I was at that number for the next year, that'd be just as fine to me as if I reach 50,000, because as the number grows, I'm still showing up for the people that are within that number, so it's like, I'm there for those people.
Right. And think about it, when we're talking about like community here, is that your followership on whatever social media is another community that you have formed, that you are forming. Those people in there, those people who are like following you and communicating with you and are in your comments and are liking your stuff, that is a whole other photography community that you are helping nurture, whatever. And if you just like only see them as like a means
numbers?
to a means to an end of some kind, like, oh, once I have 10,000 followers, then I'm really gonna like, my business is gonna take off, and blah, 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 blah. Like, sorry, but like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I've had a business that has made money for like 20 plus years, and my followership numbers have very little to do with it.
Right.
It's about like making connections with clients and things like that. And as long as you're reaching the people that you reach, and the people that you connect with, and the people who interact with are so special, because it's like you were saying, like if 5 people get a joke that I made, that's 5 people who like got the joke.
5 real people, dude. It's so crazy. I literally, sometimes I posted a thing the other day, and I saw my Threads Insights, because they just rolled it out, I think last week or whatever it was. And I saw my Threads Insights, and I was just blown away by the sheer size of it. Like, it said something like 2.2 million views and something like 150,000 likes or interactions over the last 30 days. And I was like,
what?
That is just so many fucking people, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I was just like, 150,000 real people over the last 30 days, liked, commented,
interacted in some way,
interacted with my And I'm
What?
if you
That's a
like,
stadium. That's a
that's
big
two
stadium.
stadiums.
It's a big stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, that's two stadiums. So
That's like Brazil numbers or something.
yeah, yeah, they do put on big shows. So yeah, for me, it's important to acknowledge the people that are there. I know that the numbers exist. I'm not trying to pretend that they're not, but I'm not chasing a specific number. Because like I said, like if I reach 5,000, I was like, okay, like this is still the people that I'm showing up for.
Yeah.
When I reach 10,000, I'm like, it's still the people that are here. I'm not like, oh, everybody, I'm so close to 20,000 followers. Can y'all just pile on? I'm like, even if somebody gives you a pity follow or whatever, if they see your post, they're like, oh, I'll help them. They're not, it's not like an organic, they're not drawn to you organically. They're
Right.
not part of your story. They're not part of your journey. And eventually they'll not be part of anything that is an exchange between the both of you.
Right. And I think that that's the thing too. Like maybe people will follow you if they see how engaged you are with your other follower, the people who you already have. And they'll be like, oh, this person genuinely cares about this community that they've created. I want to be part of that community.
Yeah.
So we've kind of mentioned it before. How important do you think mentorship is within the photo community? And have you had a mentor? Do you have advice for people who want to become or find mentors?
Unofficial mentor. I don't know if he wants that title, but I kind of basically study everything Scott Bourne does, and he does take the time to mentor me. We will talk on the phone, we'll text each other. When he came to New York, we hung out, and he is always so generous with his advice. It's literally so crazy that how generous he is with just guiding and advice if I have any questions. And so that would be the closest thing I have to a mentor. And I think just even the last however long I've been on Threads, less than a year, even the last year, just learning from him has been such a huge improvement, not just with my photography, but myself as a human. And I think if you grow as a human and try to leave a better world than you found it, I do think that comes across in your photography. So having a mentor and trying to become better as a human and as an artist, I think it's huge, and I that's why I always try to help people online. When people message me or they leave a comment, I'll always try to help, and I hope to mentor somebody else one day.
Yeah.
So I do think it's so important, and but of course choose wisely.
Yes. choose someone who, like, I mean, especially if it's an in-person thing, I would choose, choose who you follow, who you're taking advice from. As we talked about, bad advice. Some people some people are very confident about giving bad advice.
And people follow that kind of, if somebody can come across confident online about being wrong, people will still, that's how the whole Twitter, like Andrew Tate grift is.
Yeah.
Like he's wrong about everything, but he just comes across as this
super confident
douchebag macho man, and young men buy into it because he's just like lying with such a confidence.
Yeah. Yeah, and people think like, oh, they must know what they're talking about. Like, no.
Right. Yeah.
No. Doesn't know anything about what they're talking about.
So yeah, I think it's important, and I think definitely do your research. And I've when I started in my DJ career and production career, I would seek out people that not only talk the talk but also walk the walk. I would see people. It's great you could talk the talk, but if you don't back it up, it's like you said, when people are like, oh, I want to connect with people on Threads, and then they don't even reply to anyone.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you could talk the talk and people will comment, but then you're not walking the walk. And it's like, so what are you even doing here?
Yeah. It's like when I always, like, I will ask questions of people or like ask if anybody has questions. And I'm like, I try to be like, go through, if somebody has a question, I try to go through and answer every question that somebody asks. And like, or if they like, there's a topic and we just like, I want to discuss this, or you guys like, is there something you want to talk about? Like, I will like go through and like, I don't care if it's 5 people or, and I think the people who follow me on Instagram know this, like I will interact with everybody who comments, even the people who like, I had a reel that like got like 3.5 million views and had a lot of comments, and some of them were pretty negative towards me. And I was interacting with those people being like, hey, guess what? I don't care what you have to say about my appearance.
Yeah.
Like,
That's the thing about when something goes viral that goes outside of your circle,
yeah,
you're going to get negative comments, like no matter what you do, because a lot of times when people are coming into your like bubble that you created, they're coming at it without knowing your history, and just they might be, you don't know anything that's going on in their life. They might be just angry and looking to shout at someone.
Yeah.
And you just might be you just came up on their FYP, you know? So people will just be angry about something and you're just like in the way.
Yeah. And the thing is,
I've
like,
gotten it so many times where they'll just start shouting stuff at me that they don't know nothing about me. And I'm like, you just found me 2 seconds ago. What could you possibly know about me?
yeah,
What could you possibly know about my history as not only as a person that exists on social media, but me as a human being and how I've lived my life and who I am and the things that I do? Like, how could you possibly know any of that? You're just angry at something, and I'm just in your line of sight, and you're just kind of like, I'm gonna be angry, and I'm just gonna yell, and I'm like,
yeah.
I've actually learned from a couple I follow and I'm friends with now as a result of threads with some photographers that have hundreds of thousands of followers and are really successful, and they're just like, just block and just ignore,
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just you have to, because you're going to be drained of your energy if you try to engage with them and try to keep up with all of that. So
I found
just block and move on, because they're not even trying to hear you. It's more of you're like
you're
like
a totem. You're
like a dartboard for them to just, they're not bouncing anything back. They just want to throw darts at you.
Yeah.
And it's not coming back. So if you're not throwing a dart back at them, because they're just there.
Yeah.
And they went to the bar already. They're getting their drink. So you're not bouncing anything back. They threw the dart and they're out.
They're gone.
So So I've people will just argue about anything. So I go ahead and block and move on. Don't try to argue with people.
I found that experience for me as someone who's fairly self-conscious, and I like, my wife would be like, is this bothering you? Like, is it causing like an issue for you personally? And I think that it was actually something that took me in a positive direction, because I was like, you know what? I actually care less now about the negative things that people say because of this experience. And it's just like, that was sort of like, the thing that I worried about, that I was afraid of people saying, now I'm like, you know what? Like you said, they're just like, they're mad at somebody else. They're mad at some other thing. They don't know me.
Kicking the dog.
Yeah. Don't kick the dog, man.
Don't ever kick the dog, but the saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We both have very adorable dogs.
Yeah.
Something I've learned from threads is that we both have very cute dogs.
Gordon's sleeping on the floor as he does.
As is mine.
Yeah, don't kick the dog, but the saying is it's people. You don't know what people are on the other side of the screen. You don't know what they're going through. They might be upset about their car breaking down, and they see something about whatever, and they'll just be angry about something else, and they're just trying to throw darts, and then they're out. It's like,
so
move on.
Looking ahead, what do you see as the future of photography communities in general, like in online, in person, and how should photographers be willing to adapt to the changes that how we connect and share our work?
It's a good question. Really good question. I really think, like I mentioned before, I think people are looking for authenticity. They're not looking for perfectly curated grids. So I think showing up as yourself is a big thing moving forward. And I think threads helped me be a little bit more vulnerable in that way, where and I think people were drawn to that. Seems like. Um, so I think that's definitely in the future. I think photographers not creating a perfect gallery, but just existing as humans. I think people will be. I think communities can be built around that for photographers. Not just about their perfect shot of an elephant on a safari. Those are great shots or whatever, but like, and there's a huge business around that. But I think people are drawn to real stuff now more than ever because there's so much AI and so much
Oh
fake.
yeah, that's a whole other
Yeah.
topic.
So I just went to a meetup at the Leica store in New York City, and it was huge. I mean, I think there was like 100 people there. Um, and people were really enjoying hanging out and being part of something in real life. Um, I think people are definitely in a social media. I think will always exist in our lives, but I think people are definitely like a little bit hungover
Yeah.
from social media. So the more you could make it seem like it's not just social media and there's a real human on the other side, and not just a person creating an
Content.
Instagram profile or a Threads profile. Um, I think people are definitely. I see that more than ever now. People are drawn to that, especially on Threads when people are started, and they still talk about it. People are like, "Wow, I've never been able to be part of a community like this." You
Yeah.
know,
I will say
but
that as
that's
somebody who's been around for a while. Like this is not even like like Reddit and all other things. Like this is it is the first case where I've really seen like a real community of people who are supportive of one another's
mhm.
online.
Yeah. So I think it's gonna shift more towards that. At least I'd like to see it move towards that. I think people want something real. Um, People want to see maybe your iPhone shot and not your perfectly edited that took you 40 minutes in Lightroom, then move to
Photoshop.
Photoshop, then to whatever sharpening third party thing output. Um, People love those images and those are great. And I strive to have amazing images and I strive to be really good as a photographer. But I think people want just like
The
human,
realness.
just like, hey, here's, people want just the in between stuff too. Because I think every photographer has days where they go out and they shoot and they don't bring anything home that they like. I've been there. I'm sure
Yeah.
you've been there. Um, and I think we are a lot harder on ourselves than we should be. And I think sometimes it's okay to share something because you never know, it might, there's been so many times where I'm like, this isn't like the greatest thing I've ever made, but something about it is doing it for me. And it's not perfect, but I like that it's doing something for me and I'll share it and then it'll like resonate with people in ways you never imagined. But if you held on to that photograph on your hard drive and never shared it with anybody, you'll never know how it connect with people. And that's the whole thing, right? We're
Yeah.
connecting with people. So I think that's the future of all communities, not just photography. I think people want something real, man.
Yeah. They don't
People
want to
want just
necessarily see the
authenticity.
perfection. I think that it's really, it reminds me, I'm actually working on a photography, like a film project with my dog, and I get the roles developed like I usually take them in like once a month and then get them back. And there are sometimes where like half the role like the shots did not come out. It's just like I'm experimenting with stuff, but it's just like and funnily enough, I was like planning like, you know what, I need to like actually post these. I'm
Yeah.
okay with the failures.
Yeah.
They happen.
Yep.
Like and that's stuff I've learned from this process of like, yeah, like, oh, got that back. That actually did not come out. That did not happen the way I was hoping it
Yeah.
to. But I learned something from that. But also, I think it's the knowing that other people aren't perfect, and knowing that
Yeah.
like
100%. I think
the
some of the
curated.
most like posts that kind of take off is just me being like the most vulnerable, and I'm not doing it for the sake of like, oh, I'm going to post a story that is vulnerable. I think I've just gotten really comfortable at knowing that, and Threads is largely responsible for this, that there are people waiting to support you, to comfort you, to, you know, to be there for you. And I think a lot of people are, and I used to be that way too, are scared to take that step to expose themselves or be vulnerable. And I think we're getting to a place where, especially on Threads, maybe not on Twitter or X, whatever,
Yeah,
where
whatever.
people will like drag you down and troll you. But on
The platform that shall no longer be named.
yeah, but on Threads, I feel like there's, and I don't know, maybe I've created a little bubble of my community that makes me feel safe, and I'm so grateful for that. But it's definitely a place where I'm just like, I'm just gonna speak my mind, and people are like, yo, dude, it's all good, you know. And so I think, yeah, I think that's where I'd like to see it kind of expand on that, where people are drawn to, because also it's like the other thing is like I think photography and technology is getting so good that, um I mean, it takes time to learn to really create a beautiful photo, but it is getting good to the point of it can really, out the box, if you have really good gear and like a pretty good eye, you could create some pretty dope stuff.
Yeah, the learning curve is not as steep as it
Yeah,
used to
so
be.
I think to me, over the last year, I think once I've kind of, I still use Instagram, but I've detached myself from it. I think I realized there's like so many incredible photographers, and I'm like, okay, well, I think for me, like a great image is just like the entry point for me to, just
Have-
like, that's just like buying the ticket for me to really enjoy or connect or resonate with a photographer.
or have
I'm
a
like,
conversation
that's a
about it.
great photo, cool, I like it, but that's just like 10% for me, because there's another guy that, or woman, is creating that or better, and there's another one right over there, and there's another one right over there. So I think for me, personality started to kind of take priority over perfectly, like, perfect images.
Yeah.
um and I think that's another thing why I've been able to be part of my community, because I'm drawn to people that are, um that really talk and the talk and walk the walk. I've been in situations where I've followed people, and Threads is really good at exposing this,
Yeah. Your
is
comments on other people.
where the replies show up on your timeline.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, when they first joined, they thought it was Instagram where you could kind of comment in private,
Yeah.
and nobody would see that, because on Instagram you can leave a comment on somebody's page, and chances are your followers won't see that.
Yep.
I don't know what people's lives are like on Instagram, right? But on Threads, if I follow somebody, or even if it's someone that I engage with on the regular, their comments or replies will show up in on my timeline. So it's a really good test of how people act when they don't maybe remember that their things are being shown.
Yeah.
Like, I remember following a photographer early on, and all of his replies were just like really weirdo, like, to like models. And if you're like horny on the timeline, like, I'm not judging you, but like, if you're respectful and like you can flirt with people or whatever, but like, if it's just that's all that is, I'm like, I don't need to see that, and you're being a little bit weird, and like that's not okay. So I would just like I would unfollow, or
Yeah.
if somebody was being mean to somebody in the comments. But that's also a great way to find and connect with people that you really like. Like I found this guy on Threads recently. His name is Rob. He's a photographer from Chicago, and I always see his replies on my timeline. And he's always so helpful to people and always giving like the best advice. And I'm like, that guy is walking the walk. He's about it. You know what I mean? And that's important to me to see how people act, not just on the timeline, but
Right.
in the comments and in the replies.
Yeah, because you see that how like what they like you said they think that they can. Yeah, the people who are a little more shady are the ones who probably forget that or don't realize that people can see their replies.
A lot of people when they first get on there, they don't realize that, and you're like,
Oh
well, you're just
hey,
exposing yourself. So yeah, so to answer your question, I think that's where I think the community aspect of photography is headed to a more authentic place. I think people want to see that.
hey photographers, are you tired of using the same stale poses with your clients, resulting in stiff and unnatural photos? Consider using Let's Be Real prompts instead. Prompts are not just a list of poses. They're designed to help you create a more engaging, fun environment for your photo subjects, resulting in more natural and authentic images. With the Nerdy Photographers Let's Be Real prompts, you'll have a unique set of prompts for couples, weddings, families, and individuals, ensuring that you never run out of ideas. Prompts are particularly helpful for clients who are nervous or self-conscious about having their picture taken. By giving them something else to focus on, they can become more relaxed and their reactions will be more authentic and less guarded. Using Let's Be Real prompts will not only help you create more fresh and dynamic images, but it will also increase your confidence and your client's confidence in you. You'll be able to handle difficult situations and subjects with ease, resulting in more satisfied clients and a stronger photography business. So start using Let's Be Real prompts from the Nerdy Photographer today and elevate your photography to the next level. Go to nerdyphotographer.com and go to our store, or click the link in the episode notes and get started creating authentic, engaging images today. Are you ready to take your photography business to new heights? Look no further than PicTime, the ultimate solution for photographers who demand more. Wow your clients with stunning branded galleries that showcase your work like never before. Let your customers preview selected photos on an array of printed goods. PicTime's smart photo store ensures your art shines on everything from canvases to coffee mugs. And take the stress out of marketing with PicTime's automation tools that empower you to effortlessly connect with clients, leaving you more time to focus on your craft. And revolutionize your workflow with PicTime's cutting-edge AI tool that allows you to search and sort images effortlessly, saving you time and ensuring you find that perfect shot in seconds. And that helps you strengthen vendor relationships with precision, curate vendor galleries, sending them just the right images, and enhancing your professional connections. Worried about switching hosts? Fear not. The expert staff at PicTime can seamlessly migrate your photos, making the transition smooth and stress-free. So are you ready to transform your photography experience? Visit nerdyphotographer.com/recommends/PicTime today and discover a world where creativity meets efficiency.
Hey, hey, hey! And now for my favorite part of the show. What's that say? Useless information. Ugh, this is always death.
Dimitry, it's time for our useless information for this episode. Which state in the United States do you think is most popular for fictional murders?
Fictional murders. Maybe like New Orleans,
Maine,
Maine.
because of
Interesting.
Stephen King,
Uh-huh.
for one, and Murder, She Wrote, which was set in Cabot Cove, Maine. 400 and something murders over the course of that series. Yeah, Maine is super popular for
Okay.
fictional murders.
I like that. Interesting. Now I know.
All right. So before we wrap up, there are a couple things. Since you're a music photographer, there are a couple questions I want to ask. Top 3 concerts you've been to, not necessarily photographed, but top 3 concerts. I'm not asking you to put them in any order either.
Sure. I'll put them in order.
Yeah.
Number 1, Daft Punk, which is my favorite group of all time. 2007 in Brooklyn, Coney Island, which is a special place for me too. It's where I grew up. I grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm a Ukrainian immigrant, but I grew up here. So Coney Island is a special place for me, and seeing my favorite band there was just, I mean, that concert changed my life. So that's that. There's like that, and then everything else. So we'll just leave that as number 1, and then the rest are not in any particular order. Fleetwood Mac at Madison Square Garden. I can't remember the year, but must have been many years ago. And maybe I'll say Slipknot.
Okay. Okay. You
Um,
got some. There's a wide variety there. I like it. I like it.
yeah, I would say Slipknot. You remember the year? Maybe 2000 or 2001 or somewhere around there. Early on in their career, their first album tour. I think at the time they were just. I think it was just like a wrecking ball. I think bands were afraid to follow them because they were an opening band at this point, and they were just the most chaotic energy you'd ever seen in anything. And they would just demolish and punish the stage. It was just so crazy. And their music was just so angry. And they were angry. And they were all on drugs. And they were just chaotic. And it was just so nuts. And the whole mask thing was also just such a, you're drawn to that. And the curiosity factor was there for sure. And this was, year 2001 or 2000. So I think MySpace was around, but like social media wasn't where it is now. There was no, I don't think YouTube was even around. So trying to find someone's identity,
Right.
like who was wearing a mask on stage, good luck. Like
It's
it
like
was
trying to figure out who
impossible.
Guar is.
Right. Like it was impossible. So you were so curious. And like, that was my formative years. So I was like, very like, I'm still into music. I love music more than anything. But like at the time, I was obsessed with music. Like you don't understand. Like I used to go to concerts. Literally, I would do anything to go to concerts. I was obsessed with music, and I think New York City has the best culture when it comes to live music.
I agree.
Um,
Maybe New
so
Orleans might be.
so I think growing up in New York, I think if you want to go to concerts 7 nights a week, you could do that, right? So I was obsessed with going to concerts, and yeah, at the time when Slipknot came out, it was just chaos, man. It was like I'd never seen anything like it. The pit was crazy. The band was just as crazy as the audience. So yeah, those are my top 3, I think.
Okay.
It's a good variety, I think, too.
And before it's incredible variety. I love it. I have a very eclectic music taste myself, so I love the variety. One band, if you could photograph that you have not photographed before, from the past or present, who would it be?
Present Slipknot, past Daft Punk. So
still
the same.
Still in the same group. Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. My obsession with Daft Punk is kind of crazy. So that would be my.
That'd be your dream.
And it's cool now. It's cool because now they've retired, and Thomas, one half of Daft Punk, he's now just out and about and takes pictures with fans, obviously without the mask.
Yeah.
And he's constantly, I've seen pictures online with him with like, he's just in Paris, just like,
hanging out.
Yeah, I'll take a picture with you, and it's cool. And New York Times did a piece about him last year. He was releasing his like debut solo album, which is like a classical music album. It's so sick. And they did, I forget who shot it, but it was in black and white. And I would love to photograph him. That would be, I'm like shaking. I have like goosebumps thinking about it. I would love to photograph Thomas Bangalter from Daft Punk because He-Man, he's the other half. He's out of the spotlight completely. Like he's still like, you can't find pictures of him anywhere, just not even in Paris, out and about, or in LA. I think he lives in both. There's no pictures of him online. He stays hidden. But Thomas Bangalter, he's been in the press, and I would love to photograph him. Just some, portraits of him, just in the studio or in his home, or for Time Out New York, or New York Times or whatever, a piece. That would be, I think, I could die happy right there.
I hope we can make that happen for you, man. I really do.
Yeah.
I hope that happens for you.
Yeah.
Dimitry, where can people find you before we sign off?
Of course, Threads, Dimitry Mak Photo, and all my social media is the same after that. So Instagram, Dimitry Mak Photo. My website is dimitrymak.co, not .com, co. And yeah, those I pretty much exist mostly on Threads. I still have my Instagram up, and of course I engage. If somebody messages me, I'm always there. I'll reply to your message, but it's not something I upload. Like if I'm shooting a concert or a project or whatever, I'll upload on Instagram. But I spend that's another way that I'm able to spend so much time on Threads, is that I don't spend time on other platforms.
Right.
So I don't go bouncing between YouTube, TikTok, and having to upload everywhere. I just upload to Threads, and that's, I think, it's kind of like the grass is greener where you water it. So I don't need to spread myself thin between multiple platforms. And I think if you're listening, find what platform works for you. If it's not Threads, maybe you're good at YouTube. Spend the most time there, and then kind of repurpose everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, find me on Threads. I'll be happy to reply to everything, and love to, I get inspired daily by seeing art and photography on Threads. So.
Well, thank you for being on the show, man.
Thank you for having me. It was
really appreciate it. And if you're having a meetup,
really fun.
If you're having a meetup, let me know. I'll be there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And welcome back, Nerdy Photo Crew. Once we were able to weed out all the bots who were trying to take over the meetup, we actually got a pretty good group together. Many thanks to Dimitry Mak for joining us to talk about the importance of being part of a thriving photography community. You can find a link to Dimitri's website in the episode notes, or just go follow him on Threads at Dimitry Mak Photo. That's at Dimitry Mak Photo. While you're at it, you can also follow along with the Nerdy Photographer on various social media platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Reddit, at The Nerdy Photo. That's at The Nerdy Photo. No underscores, dots, or dashes. And feel free to tell us what you think about this or any other episode of the show. Leave your photography-related questions, or tell us what topics you'd like to hear covered on the podcast in the future. And don't forget your homework. Share this podcast with 3 of your friends. Folks, please, no sword fighting on the tables. We want to get our security deposit back. Until next time, everyone, stay safe and stay nerdy.
Who's that coming back to town? You better start listening. Who's your heart been beating about? You better listen.